The views and opinions expressed by the host of this show are his and his alone. They do not reflect those of this network, his employer, any of the universities he attended, his family and friends, or former roommates, any of the 5 Temptations, the 4 Tops, or any number of the Pips. They may or may not reflect those of the other voices in his head. His dog, however, agrees with him 100%. And now, broadcasting from Venture X Studios in Frisco, Texas, it's the Snarky Parenthetical. Here's your host. He's highly caffeinated and mildly irritated. Here's Lathan Watts.
All right, welcome back to the Snarky Parenthetical. Hope you're listening to this or watching to start your weekend, and we're going to give you some things to think about and maybe chuckle about. So let's jump right in. Today, Stan, we have kind of a sports-themed show. It's kind of the politicization of sports also, which is something that I find mildly irritating. But it is what it is. So we'll just jump right into it here at the top. We have transgender athlete Chelsea Wolfe says goal is to burn a U.S. flag on the Olympic podium. That's story number one that I want to get into when we talk about sports and politics. Because the main thing for me is the mixture of the two.
Right.
This person, who is a man who's a transgender woman competing on the women's U.S. freestyle BMX team in the Olympics.
Freestyle BMX. She is the alternate on this team. Okay. And announced that the goal was to get on the podium so I can burn a U.S. flag while I'm on the podium. Now, I'm not going to really read the comments of what this person is so upset about because it's just inane. And there's an old saying like hell is being condescended to by an idiot. That's actually not an old saying. That's a new saying. It's one of mine that I hope catches on. Okay.
So I'm not going to get into this person's grievance. Okay. Because really, honestly, my opinion on this whole matter has nothing to do with what this person's grievance about America is.
Right.
Okay? The bigger principle for me is that things like the Pledge of Allegiance, the national anthem, sporting events, 4th of July fireworks, the Olympics every 4 years for the summer games. I mean, these are things where people as Americans who have very, very different views on a lot of different things. We fight amongst ourselves over just about anything and everything these days.
Oh, yeah, we do.
So we need a few things here and there where we can all come together and say, I'm here for America. Right? There are things, regardless of how different we view the country. Is the country perfect? Of course not. Nobody claims that it is because it's populated by imperfectible human beings. But no other country in the history of the world is as aspirational as this one. Nobody has done as much as this country has to try to fix the things that we mess up. And we continually try to make it better.
Exactly.
So we need things like the Olympics, like the national anthem, like the Pledge of Allegiance, like 4th of July, fireworks, whatever you want. There's a few things that we need to put aside that other stuff and say, you know what? It's very rare in the world where I am allowed to disagree with my government, with everybody else, and we sort of fight it out rhetorically. We don't handle this with guns in the streets. With maybe a few exceptions, Antifa, right, and that is something to be celebrated, and and to be so grateful to live in a country that protects your right to do this. If you can't summon 2 minutes worth of gratitude while you're standing on an Olympic podium representing your country, or at the beginning of a professional sporting event where you were paid millions of dollars to play a sport, where in any other country you could not have the life that you are living here.
Yes.
Just to show a little bit of gratitude, just because you have the right to do something doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. And if you can summon just 2 minutes worth of gratitude for the country that makes that possible,
during the national anthem, when you're on the Olympic podium, when people stand up to say the Pledge of Allegiance. If you can't, it says much more about you than it does the country. And to me, that's really what this is about. This is about drawing attention to this person. Because you're an alternate, dude. Yeah. You're not even going to be on the podium unless somebody else gets hurt or can't do the job. You're like the first runner-up in a beauty pageant.
Right.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So the chances of you being on the podium are probably...
Maybe second or third runner. I mean,
yeah.
Little ways down the line.
Slim and none. And Slim just left town. Okay?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm not trying to insult this person. I just get confused as to what I'm supposed to call him, her, whatever. Okay? This person announced this ahead of time because that's the way you get attention, right? Because the chances of him actually being on the podium, as I said, as an alternate, not that great.
Yep.
And whatever your grievance is, okay, you got people who are going to agree with you. You don't need to convince them. It's the people who are on the fence about whatever that issue is, or the people that disagree with you on that issue that you need to draw attention to your point of view. And if you do this, if this is how you choose to do it, they're never going to listen to what you have to say.
Exactly.
Because you chose to do it this way, they're never going to listen to you.
Right.
A large chunk of the population whose mind you need to try to change, according to you, is not going to listen to what you have to say because of the way you decided to say it. If you got to explain your protest, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And by the way, man, you ride a bike.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
You ride a bike.
This isn't the world's fastest man competition.
Right. I mean, it's easier for me to understand how somebody, say in the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, can delude themselves into thinking that people care what I think about politics, because people pay a lot of money to watch them do what they do, and they make a lot of money to do what they do. I can almost understand how they can get into that mindset that I'm really important and people care about what I think, and therefore I should opine on blah, 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 blah. This dude rides a bike.
Right.
What percentage of the population is tuning into the Olympics to watch BMX freestyle bike riding?
Yeah.
And how's that in the Olympics?
Yeah,
that's a whole other topic.
That's very
the
low
things
on
that
the
are
list
in the
of
Olympics that
priority. Yeah.
Yeah. That are stretching the definition of the word sport. Okay.
Right up there with curling.
Exactly. And what it comes down to is style over substance.
Yeah.
This is a big flashy show that I'm going to put on.
Yes.
Okay, but what are you actually doing about whatever the problem is that you're upset about?
And picking the moment of unity specifically to do it, that's
exactly
just supposed to bring some people together and give us something to cheer for. And
right, and that's my whole point about all of this. Whether it's the NFL, the NBA, whoever taking a knee during the national anthem, number one, don't try to claim it's a First Amendment right, because the First Amendment protects you from the government, not your employer. So all you professional athletes, you're employed by a team and the NFL. This situation might be slightly different because it's the United States Olympic Committee, which you could say is quasi-governmental, and then you might have a First Amendment claim. Okay. But like I said before, just because you have the right to do it doesn't make it the right thing to do.
Yes. Exactly.
So I got one other thing, probably sports / politics related. And like I said, really the issue is the mixture of the two. Like, we need things, we've got to stop politicizing everything.
Right. Does it all have to be intertwined?
Can I get, a couple of weeks in the summer every 4 years where everybody's just proud of our country because we're better at this than other people?
Sure.
Right? Yeah. Like, hey, we win, So anyway, Supreme Court ruled unanimously that the NCAA had violated antitrust rules by restricting certain educational benefits to college scholarship athletes. Unanimously ruled this. Justice Gorsuch wrote the opinion and said that the district court had merely barred the NCAA from imposing restraints on related to education. He noted the district court gave considerable leeway in defining what constitutes an education-related benefit. He said it's our job to determine whether the district court properly applied the principles of antitrust law to this dispute, which, of course, it's concluded it did. Now, the interesting thing about this case,
is, oh, we lost Johnny Cash. My bad. The man in black.
Oh.
Yeah, things are falling apart today.
He agrees.
So the interesting thing about this opinion is that Justice Kavanaugh in the concurrence basically questioned the legality of the NCAA having other restrictions on other benefits for college athletes. Kavanaugh, if he has his way, is basically paving the way to pay college athletes, which to me is the end of amateur sports. And getting back to kind of what I really love about college sports versus professional sports. The college athletes are still striving for something, right?
Yeah.
Like they're getting a free education. It's a great benefit. There goes the man in black. He'll be back. You can't get rid of Johnny Cash. Don't worry about it.
He's making a statement right now. Either he really doesn't agree with you, or
I've had enough.
Yeah.
Johnny Cash, who is the singing voice of John Wayne, by the way. That's just a whole other tangent. Like, just take John Wayne's speaking voice. Well, I tell you, Pilgrim, right? And then just draw it out a little bit. I hear the train a coming. It's Johnny Cash is the singing voice of John Wayne. Anyway,
that makes a lot of sense.
I'm rambling incoherently. What I love about college sports is that they're still striving for something.
Yes.
There's something else that they're playing for, right? And maybe it is to eventually be paid to play this sport.
Sure.
But they are getting an unbelievable benefit for what they're doing, which is a free college education. Those of us like me that mom and dad didn't make enough money to pay for college, but made too much money for me to get any sort of grant. So I borrowed every penny to go to college and law school. I just finished paying for that just a few years ago.
Right.
The only bill I paid every month that was bigger than my student loan bill was the mortgage on my house.
Wow.
So don't tell me that scholarship athletes are somehow being deprived of something if we're not just paying them a salary to play this like they would if they were in professional leagues.
Right.
They are getting a tremendous benefit, and they're getting it for free, and most of them will not go on to pro sports, so that free education is going to be what actually employs them for the rest of their life and makes those other careers possible.
Yep.
And Kavanaugh's concurrence casts doubt on whether or not NCAA can keep schools from paying players. And as I said, I think it would be the end of college sports as we know it, because the big schools with lots of money will continue to pay more than the little schools who don't have much money. And you have the haves and the have-nots, and you'll have, even within the Big Five conferences,
right,
even within the SEC, there'll be schools, that'll come up with more money for a recruit, to pay him to play there, and guess where he's going to play, right? I mean, and then it's just, now we're just playing professional sports on a different level. That's really all it is.
Right. You've just created a clone of something you already have.
Yeah.
With different caveats, but now it's just a different version of the same thing.
Right. So, the Supreme Court decision, I think they got it right because the NCAA was restricting benefits related to education that other students get, and they were keeping it, they were restricting it from scholarship athletes. Well, you can't do that. You can't treat them differently. You can't treat them worse than everybody else. If it's an educational benefit, they can get it. The NCAA's position is that these educational benefits, like the definition starts getting blurry all of a sudden, it can sort of get into that, well, yeah, here's an educational benefit, that sort of looks, feels, and smells like money.
Right.
And so, but, the Supreme Court, applied the antitrust laws, said the district court had ruled properly. So it's another sort of example of the intersection between sports and politics, which is, I find, mildly irritating. Like I said, we need a break from politics. Like, stop politicizing everything. Like, it just seems like for some people, politics is their religion. Like, they just need something else. Just find something else in your life.
Right.
And I mean, for me personally, if we could reduce the role of government in the average citizen's life, then the politics would calm down.
Stands to reason.
If government didn't have so much to say about how you live your life every day, then election season would not be the be-all, end-all of some people's existence. And
exactly.
You wouldn't see the politicization of everything, right? I mean, just...
Yep. Yep.
So...
Very true.
Which brings me to... Actually, it doesn't. I'm just switching gears. We were talking about college sports, pro sports. One of the other things that I find humorous is just sort of the difference between the modern pro athlete and the pro athletes of even not that long ago, 20, 30 years ago.
Exactly.
Right? So I was talking to Stan, the man, about this, and he pulled up a couple of good examples to demonstrate this. So if you're listening to this, it's basically a compilation of LeBron James flopping all over the court. So if you're watching, I think we're going to have it on the monitor here.
We've pulled the most egregious example, just to kind of illustrate how ridiculous it's gotten.
All right, so
here we
boom.
go.
So today was game 1.
Here we go. Oh, I jumped
Almost
for a
like he
rebound.
was trying to lift off. I don't know what that was. Was he trying to fly into the rafters there?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. And then of course a fight has to break out.
Right. So,
and then we've got the slow-mo. Let's see. Let's check that out. It should be up here in just a second.
you know, I don't even have to see it in slow-mo.
It's a little ridiculous just on the face of it right there.
So the flopping in the NFL, or the NBA, contrast that with, you got this other clip?
Oh, yeah, here we go.
Here's one of my all-time favorite moments in NBA history, which is the 84 championship series between the Celtics and the Lakers, and Kevin McHale instituting the no layup rule in the finals.
That's right. Okay, here it is. Right there. That was something else.
Yeah, the clothesline of Kurt Rambis.
Yep.
That's a foul, LeBron. You want to know what a hard foul is? That's one.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys were not playing around.
Yeah.
Okay. It's
was the real deal.
It's just a completely different game. And I'll say this: this is not just like grumpy old man, like, oh, it's just not the old days, like, because the other thing we were talking about earlier about the politicization of sports. Mm-hmm. Right around that same time period, I might have been a year or two later after the '84 finals, and confession, was a huge Celtics fan. I was a big fan of Larry Bird, all of those guys, just the way they played. But at sort of the height of Bird's career, a couple of guys on the Pistons made some comments about him that basically said he wouldn't get near as much attention if he was black. And then reporter who recorded it went to Isaiah Thomas, who was probably the biggest name on the Pistons, and asked him, what do you think about this? And he basically said, well, I'd have to agree. If he was black, he'd just be just another good guy.
Right.
Now, this all came out like during either the playoffs or the finals.
Wow.
And it blew up, right? I mean,
sure.
And to the point where they held a press conference before one of the games. They had Isaiah Thomas there. Bird comes in like shorts and a jersey, like he just walked out of practice. And he just came in and sat down at the microphone and said, I don't really have a problem with what they said. It doesn't bother me. If it doesn't bother me, it shouldn't bother anybody else. And that's all I'm going to say about it. He turned around, shook Isaiah Thomas's hand, and walked out of the room. Like,
there you go.
Right? Can you imagine?
That's how you deal with it, like a man, right there.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, he did not want this to distract him. He was there to play ball, and that's all he was there to do. Mm-hmm. He wasn't trying to be your political leader. He wasn't trying to be anybody's punching bag for whatever social issue was going to be, and he wasn't going to get involved in it. To him, it was a distraction from winning a championship. That's what he was there to do.
Exactly.
It's what he's paid to do. Play ball and win. Yep. And you could tell how irritated he was that he even had to be there. Okay. Right. Now take that scenario right now and drop that in today's NBA and watch what would happen. We wouldn't hear anything else for 6 months to a year, and every player in the NBA would be forced to comment on it. Yep. And then the rest of us would have to listen to it. when we really just want to watch people play ball, right?
Exactly.
Because we're bombarded with this stuff everywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yep. There's
politics and sports. Let's get it out of sports.
Right.
We need things, like I mentioned before, we need things that we can sort of unify around, okay? Mm-hmm. Because I also think sports is sort of the outlet for sort of our natural tribal instincts, you know? Like, I got a theory about football, because I got a theory about most things, that football is, there would be more wars if we didn't have football. Because football, when you break it down to its elements, is the violent acquisition of territory, like by force.
There you go.
Right? And just look at all the metaphors in football, right? Where you place the ball is known as the line of scrimmage. That's a military term. Mm-hmm. You have the offensive line versus the defensive line. And they typically call that the war in the trenches.
Yep.
That's World War I. What do you call a long pass in the NFL? A bomb.
Yep.
What do you call the running game? The ground attack. Like, I'm telling you, this is men working out our need for violent acquisition of territory in a socially acceptable way.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
And so sports is one of those things where we can sort of indulge that kind of tribalism. Like,
right.
We're Celtics fans, we hate the Lakers. We're Lakers fans, we hate the Celtics. Right?
That's just the way it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And except for the occasional riot after one of us wins a championship, we don't typically, resort to violence as we did several centuries ago in lots of different cultures, tribalism. So that's why keeping the other actual political stuff out of sports is so important to me, because then it can be that outlet.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm. One quick example of this that's I just find kind of humorous is there's an NBA player named Kyrie Irving who was making headlines all this past season because he would just be absent from practices, absent from games. No real accountability. People are just they'd ask the coach, reporters would ask, and it'd just be I don't know. He just didn't show up, and he just kind of does what he does sometimes, and that's how it is. And then so it comes out. He finally makes a public statement. And he's saying, my heart has just been so heavy with all that's been going on in our nation. And I couldn't bring myself, I couldn't, sports just didn't seem like the most important thing to me. Now, this is a man, right? And you think, okay, well, wow, this guy's a deep thinker, kind of person, like, maybe he just really, feels strongly about these things. He also has made headlines in the past and still affirms to this day his belief that the earth is flat.
Yeah. Look, I can grant you, dude, that your heart is heavy over everything that's going on. Everybody's is. Right?
Of course.
But the rest of us still have to go to work.
Exactly.
And you're paid a whole lot of money.
You still got
to go play that game, and you got a contract, and you're hired, and that probably somewhere in the contract specifies that means practice.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
I understand. I'm not doubting that that his heart is heavy. I mean, there's things to have your heart heavy about. I get it.
Of course.
But you still got a job to do.
Exactly.
And everybody else in America just gets up and does their job.
Yep.
Go do yours. That's all I'm really saying.
That's simple.
All right. How are we on?
We're looking good. Looking good for final segment, I think.
All right, good deal. So that's enough seriousness. So here's a little thing that just sort of popped up in my world this week. Doing the grocery order, like the pickup at Walmart, like, order it online, they bring it out to your car.
Right.
One of the great things that came out of COVID, by the way.
For sure. That's a great innovation right there.
So we pull in, girl comes out, she's loading everything up. Do you approve the substitution? Yes, no, blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, and can I see your ID? I was like, what for? She said, for the permanent markers. You're carding me to buy permanent markers? I just got to show you, I'm sure you're over 18. I was like, yeah, I'm well over 18. I'm getting carded to buy permanent markers.
Wow.
Like, we're living in a society, Stan.
Yeah.
And at what point has society devolved that we're now having to verify that you're mature enough to handle permanent markers? Like, At age 18, you can now be drafted to go fight for your country, and we trust you with permanent markers. Okay, it used to be you could buy a cigar, buy some cigarettes. Not anymore. That's now 21.
Right.
You can't go have a beer. That's also still 21 most places. So at 18, and you can vote. How about we make the requirement for voting the same thing as permanent markers? Just show me an ID, says who you are, make sure you're old enough that you still live here. Like, I don't get what the danger of selling permanent markers to people under 18 is. And I'll tell you this right now, like if it's a maturity level, I can tell you I've done some really immature things with permanent markers. And I was over 18 when I did them. Right. Okay. I'm not going to get into details here, but let me just say, because there's some guys who are probably going to watch this who are related to me through certain Greek organizations who understand that when one of us gets married, the night before the wedding, we like to just give some well wishes to the bride-to-be for the wedding night. And we do those with permanent marker on the naked body of our brother. Permanent marker. But I was well over 18 when I did that. So if what we're trying to do is stop immature handling of permanent markers, I can tell you it ain't working.
Right.
It just baffled me. I was like, what do you mean?
Of all the things. And I've never heard of that before. Is this a new thing? Or
I don't know.
Always?
I don't know.
Very strange.
Yeah. I mean, I sort of get, like, you got to show ID, I think, to get Sudafed, because you get enough of it, you can make crystal meth, right?
Sure.
Permanent marker. I don't get it. I don't get it.
That is a new one.
So, there's a little something that happened to me this week. Just sort of lighten the mood for the end of the show here, since we got a little heavy with the other stuff.
Right.
So, permanent markers. You ever done anything immature with a permanent marker, Stan?
I'll tell you what. If you count perhaps once or twice or 13 or 14 times drawing on a dry erase board and thinking I was using a dry erase marker.
But you were using the permanent marker.
I was using a permanent marker.
Maybe that's it. Maybe the government's policy is to try to spare dry erase boards. That we're just spending way too much money as a country replacing dry erase boards by people who thought they were using dry erase markers but were actually using permanent markers. And so
very well could be.
We're going to have to start carding people when they buy these things, because we can't just have people out there running around willy-nilly marking on whiteboards, and the next thing you know, and that's probably part of the infrastructure bill, by the way. It's like money for new whiteboards.
There you go.
Everything else seems to be part of the infrastructure bill.
Oh, for sure.
People are infrastructure now, I guess.
Yep.
You may be onto something there. That maybe that's it.
Yeah, I think that could be behind it. And there's other things. I mean, man, I'm thinking back to grade school age now. I mean, huff and glue was a thing, right? So when am I going to get carded for the Elmer's glue? Yeah. Or maybe I'm aged out now, But
you're plenty old enough.
Dating myself here, but but no, I mean, can't just have high schoolers out here buying glue and doing crafts.
Yeah, completely unsupervised. Unsupervised crafts going on, dogs and cats living together. Mass hysteria.
Man. It's just it's weird sometimes, the things society picks to
it's a thing. Yeah,
focus
we're
on.
We're really gonna crack down on the underage permanent marker buying.
But like you said, the ingredients to literally make a bomb that could really do some actual harm to people, perfectly legal to buy.
Yeah,
at any age,
pretty much. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go into what those ingredients are here on the show. but yeah,
exactly.
All right.
Man.
Thankfully, I did not go into the ingredients so that I can now say I think we've done enough damage for today.
See, there we go. There it is.
I want to thank JPK Network, all of you for tuning in again. I forgot. Today's show sponsored by El Pollo Hermano, the chicken brothers. Chicken so good, it's actually almost addictive. really good chicken, you do not want to mess with the owner. All right.
That's for sure.
Yeah, I almost forgot that. I did not institute a new dress code. I just, came straight from the office. So here it is. We were talking about some serious things, so I, kept the serious dress code for a little while. Anyway, thank you to the JPK Network. Thank you to all of you checking us out. Hope you have a good weekend. We will be back next week. It's the Snarky Parenthetical on the JPK Network.